There are days you'll feel like running away. My mom taught me that, and I'll never forget. We were outside drying laundry, and it was May, my favorite month. The month when the lily of the valley blooms and everything feels fresh and alive. It was right before my wedding, my perfect May wedding. My mom was talking about commitment and marriage. I had never seen her or Dad argue, but she said, no matter how much you love your husband, there will be days when it's really hard. I thought, no way, Mom, that won't happen to me. Mark and I were in love. He was the center of my world. Here's what I wrote in my journal, May 4th, 1985. Today I took a vow to love and cherish my beloved husband Mark until death. And that is just what I'll do, no matter what troubles or hardships we come across. That commitment was tested right away. I had always known Mark to drink. By the time we had our third child, he was drinking really heavily, and I became increasingly frightened and worried and unfortunately bitter. As the kids got older, so did the intensity in the home, the chaos.
It was just much harsher.
We'd be in our beds and hear a lot of arguing. By the time he would be home for about half an hour, he would already be drunk.
He began to just rage.
I had a bad feeling in the pit of my stomach every time I heard my dad yelling.
He's starting to punch holes in the doors more often. He's starting to lunge at me. He's starting to be angry at me. He's starting to threaten me more.
I didn't know what he was capable of doing to us. I asked him if he loved alcohol more than he loved us, and he couldn't answer.
When Mark let me down, I was devastated. But I realized a relationship with Christ was the anchor I needed. So I cried out to the Lord and said, I'm desperate. I need you. I surrender everything to you. It had turned out that my mom had been right when she said there are days you'll feel like running away. I did feel like running away. I did feel like holding Mark's sin against him. I didn't want to forgive, but I was convinced that I had spoken a vow to love and cherish my beloved husband Mark until death, no matter what troubles or hardship came. And I stayed committed to that vow. I thought if I just prayed hard enough, God would change my husband. What I didn't realize was how much I needed to change. For instance, I needed to stop trying to change the situation by myself. I looked good on the outside. I'd have dinner made and greet him at the door, but under my breath, I was critical. I'd slam doors in the kitchen as just a subtle way to show him my displeasure. Instead of praying, waiting, and allowing God to work on Mark's heart, I was trying to take things into my own hands. I remember a really difficult time when Mark had essentially checked out. I was having a pity party for myself, thinking Mark has left me here all alone. On Revive Our Hearts that day, Nancy was talking specifically about husbands. She was challenging women to pray for their husbands for 30 days.
For the next 30 days, purpose not to say anything negative about your husband, to your husband, or to anyone else about him. And every day for
and
the
I
next
thought
30
to myself,
days,
you
take some
have
time to
no
let your
idea
husband know
how horrible my husband is. And no sooner had I said that when Nancy said, and don't tell me how I don't understand how horrible your situation is. I was like, what is this? Nancy is in my head. But it was the Lord using Revive Our Hearts to anchor me once again to the Word of God. That's always what God was saying. Joy, stop looking at your husband and let's take a look at you. One time I was screaming to God, I hate the stench of alcohol in his breath. And then God spoke to my heart and said, all sin is a stench to me. And I realized that my complaining was sin. My grumbling and discontentedness against God was just as bad as Mark's addictions. Most of the world around me was saying, what are you doing? Divorce him. It's time. But I couldn't do that. For one thing, I had spoken a vow. But this was more than just gritting my teeth and getting through it. My husband needed Christ. And if I was the only person in the world that passionately would pray for him, I was never going to stop praying for him. Even if it took years for him to see Christ, and even if he never changed, I knew that the trials I was facing in this life would be so short compared to an eternity. The day we moved out was terrifying. I was committed to praying for Mark, and I wasn't going to divorce him. But we needed to separate for a time because he had no control over his rage, and we were in a lot of danger. I stopped praying that God would change Mark because that would make me happy. I was praying instead that we would represent the relationship between Christ and the church. For the first time, I was praying for holiness rather than happiness. I was tempted to become bitter and to hold on to hurt, but I knew how destructive that would be. That unforgiveness and bitterness, it would just destroy me. That I would be in a prison unless I released him through forgiveness. So even though he hadn't yet asked me to forgive him, I chose to forgive him in my heart.
My mom tried desperately to keep us from becoming bitter towards my father. She always wanted us to be forgiving of him, understanding.
She did a really good job of not saying negative things about my dad. She would always say, it's a spiritual battle. She would always remind us that we needed to love Dad.
And we would pray together oftentimes, and not just that he would stop drinking and this would go away, but for his salvation, for his well-being.
And then I realized I needed to go a step beyond forgiveness. I needed to actively bless him. I had been writing letters to Mark every day, and finally I took a piece of wedding stationery that I had saved. I told him that I hoped to enjoy a life together as husband and wife, knowing intimacy in all respects that we had never known before.
The night that I asked Jesus to forgive me, I remember sitting in my chair and just pleading to God to take it all away, to take the desire away, to take the pain away, to start healing my body. And he did.
He came to me and said, "Would you forgive me? I've sinned against God and I've sinned against you. Would you forgive me for abandoning you, for leaving you?"
I asked her to forgive me, and she asked me to forgive her. And that was the start of healing relationships.
And all those years of hurt and bitterness and anger and mistrust, it fell away. Because what he was essentially doing was meeting me at the foot of the cross in the shadow of forgiveness. My sin had looked different than his. Mine was self-righteousness. Mine could be self-pity, and mine most certainly was fear. But I had been forgiven by a holy God for my sin. And now Mark had confessed his sin to the same God. How could I refuse to offer him my complete and full forgiveness? This isn't happily ever after. We're both imperfect and sinful people. We've still had ups and downs, but rather than seeking our own happily ever after, we're seeking God's will and His holiness. And no matter what, we're committed to seeking the Lord together.